Hello, everybody, and welcome to April. I had to think about that then. Welcome to our April Psychosomatic Conversations. And today, of course, the three of us here, myself, Sean, Christy, and Linda. Our topic today, which fascinates me forever. Why global uncertainty affects us more than we realize. So we're really moving into our Trinity that we'll do. We'll do a set of three. And today's topic, it's about in times of change, can it be easy to stay in the mind, trying to make sense of what is happening around us? But the body is often already responding, holding tension, shifting energy, and signaling what we may not yet have words for. So, this is the first part of our three-set series that we have. And we're looking at what's happening for global change, but also how it affects our inner world. Linda.
As you said, fascinating topic. And it's one which, obviously seeing not just with our clients, but in our friendships and our circles and our families. From a perspective of working with clients, I'm really noticing a lot of heightened energy. And some of it is it's heightened around other things that aren't related to the external, but it's actually related to the whole nervous system being heightened without any other, causes. So when we're sort of obviously taking a look at that, it's like, how is your body responding to things that you may not have an awareness of are still filtering through into the body system?
Mm,
And of course, for others, it's very heightened. It's completely on the agenda from the time they wake up in the morning, turn the TV on, and see all this global unrest. So for some, it's an extreme level of anxiety that they're also noticing, and how to be with that
mm,
when their lives still demand attention.
mm,
Yeah, I'm finding it a very interesting developing space, and also recognizing that sometimes people have the intellectual understanding of what's occurring, what they need to do, but are bypassing some of the emotions around what's actually occurring in their body, and not necessarily being fully connected into their body. So, working with some basic principles on how do you actually emotionally connect back into your
Mhm.
body, not just at a physical level, but at an emotional level. How do you actually be? And I know we're going to explore this in a lot more detail today. So,
yeah.
looking forward
Yeah.
to the
The
conversation.
image,
Guys.
the image that I had whilst you were talking was kind of like a duck on water running across the top of the water rather than immersing itself
Yeah.
Mm.
into the movement of the shift and flow. Christy, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everyone for being here. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this too because I notice it in myself, I notice it in clients and friends and family. There's so much opinion and unrest and fear, and then sometimes certainty. And um, as I'm in it and I hear it and I witness it, I I'm reminded again and again how important it is to pay attention to my internal response and what is that? What are some of the cues that I can be aware of if I go into fear, if I catch myself going down a rabbit hole that's probably not the best rabbit hole I could ever jump down. And explaining to myself, let alone clients, this is how to begin to notice it because there is a sense of control that I think we can have within our own regulation in the nervous system. And that's really why we're doing this call today,
Mm,
is as a resource for ourselves, because we're all in it together, and a resource for you as part of our community to um, know that you are supported and we are held in a safe container, and whatever we can do to create more space within the container, this body, let alone the container of our community, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And the the conversation of if we were to exist in a room by ourselves, there are so many things going on globally at the moment that are somewhat invasive into that room and into that space. Um, and and learning how to shore up our space so we can independently exist beyond being impacted by what's occurring in our immediate environment, but also in our society and then in our global environment. So we're looking at various layers of how information comes to us. We're looking at how we experience information, and then our interaction with that information as well.
Mhm.
So we're certainly looking at each of those levels mentally, emotionally, and physically, because the nervous system can be set off quite readily. And relative to our own personal history, the nervous system may already have habits and behaviors that are embedded in there um, that were needed back then, but not now. So learning and understanding the nervous system and its one, its presence, and two, our direct relationship with it, our intentional relationship with it, but also our physical capacity to be able to draw it down to a silent place, a silent space. So the nervous system has a scale that it runs on where it's either at war or at peace. So looking at the nervous system, we need to really understand if there's more disruption, then we need to practice more peace. And when I say peace, I'm referring to silence. I'm referring to comforting silence, which then creates space within who we are. So my own personal experience with the nervous system, um, it has certainly been burnt, destroyed, impacted, and most certainly torn apart and then needed to rebuild again. So, and that's not just once or twice, it's various times that different events have occurred. Um, I mean, we can most certainly even look at our own birth and know that that in itself is a very heightened experience. So that also sets off all sorts of um, hormonal, but also behavioral experiences inside of us. So learning how to create the the tone of nurture or the sensation of the receptivity of nurture is something that's really important for all of us to understand and comprehend. Because we often know what nurture we experienced, what was gifted to us personally, but there are so many more versions than what you were originally given or what you were
Mm.
handed. Thankfully, I didn't quite realize that till later on, where it was like, oh, the ingredients of nurture is there's a lot more on offer than what I originally had experienced or was offered. Linda, what's been your experience of nurture?
I will answer that. But as you were speaking, I kind of really connected with the comfort of silence and
Mm,
comforting that silence, because I think sometimes that is the missing piece. And it's really come up as well that that comforting is different from the different styles of how we work. It can be meditation, right? But
yeah,
meditation
excellent.
can create silence, but it doesn't necessarily for all people create connection. So
Mm,
that for me is that real missing piece of, so how
yeah.
do I actually be present and comfort that space? For me, my nervous system has shown up in different ways, and one of the areas that I look at for my own slightly if I'm getting out of balance, it can be as simple as taking a look at an activity that I might do or don't do regarding to self-nurturing. And
Mm,
probably the most significant one would be from when in the past when I went through a period of depression,
mm.
noticing that the car was on empty, the fuel tank literally showing me, warning, warning, gonna run out of petrol, and driving past the petrol station and then getting
Mm.
into the car and it's like flat. Well, not quite flat, but
Uh,
almost on empty.
yeah.
So if I notice my tank, my energy tank is less than full, that would be some of the nuances which I've learned how to capture my attention towards them to go, oh, you're thinking about driving past this petrol station. To recognize that my body's actually showing me that I actually need to do some more self-care, self-nurture at that point.
And for everybody who's feeling already activated because Linda has mentioned petrol.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Take a deep breath.
We just acknowledge it,
Deep
all
breath,
right?
deep breath. Okay, yes. Not because the petrol stations aren't actually open. No, this is a solid driving past them.
Or all the other bits and pieces, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's really significant to start to just become aware of, do you have a pattern that you may notice that indicates that your body's going, okay, I'm starting to get into overwhelm. So I've just shared one of mine, and I think it's a really good thing to ponder on.
Totally, totally. And it's also how we I get it, Linda. I get down to 4K on my fuel tank once. Thanks, Leanne. Um, and it's also looking at how we also um, listen to the nervous system, but also um, how we experience the nervous system, but how we respond to the nervous system. Um, each of those are quite important too, because sometimes we'll have habits that we do out of reaction rather than have an interaction with the nervous system in order to deactivate that. Christy.
Mm. Um, I'm laughing. I was thinking of this the other day while I was exercising, because I know for me, if exercise for me helps regulate my nervous system. I love to lift weights. I love to feel strong in my body. And when I hear my brain, if I'm feeling anxious or overwhelmed, what I will hear is, you don't have time to do that. Look at your list you have to do. And I'll override that self-care with a list. And one of the things that I'm so aware of, like just like Linda driving by the gas station, is um, saying yes to things I should be saying no to stay busy and stay distracted. So I don't have to look at the thing like I need gas, internal gas, probably more so. And when I start avoiding things that matter to me the most, that is a big red flag. And sometimes it takes a few reminders for me, but I've learned to pay attention to those, because when I do pay attention, my nervous system comes right back down. When I show up and I pick up the weights, like the simplicity of exercising my body and creating strength literally calms my nervous system down. And then I can leave and I'm like, okay, world, here we go. I'm settled. I'm strong. I've taken care of a part of me that is going to show up
Mm,
so much more Grounded isn't the right word. I feel like it's more resourced when I take care of myself versus bypassing the gas station in my brain, because then it becomes just a mess really fast.
Yeah. What is your state of contentment and how are you
Yeah,
attending to your state of contentment? And are you um, increasing your state of contentment, um, or are you creating further dysfunction?
exactly.
Because all of that escalates. So the moment that the nervous system becomes activated, and it's a natural experience that as a living human being, we want to protect ourselves by what may be environmental, by what may be emotional, but also we're having this massive interaction within ourselves just by what we're thinking. By whatever a thought is passing, my chemical compound in my body wants to try and run from it, even though it's inside of me. And that's when Christy's talking about lining things up, getting things done. And that's when we're having a reaction, we're firing off out of response to a thought or a sensation that we find as threatening.
And that may show up in also different areas in relationships as well, like where you come home and your person, your partner is there doing something that they probably normally would do, but today it's getting really annoying and it's getting really frustrating. And it's partially because you've been so busy in the mind and doing things, you come back and then they do something that activates that this is actually a response that's occurring within you. And it gives you some further information on how to be with that space.
I have a funny story about that. A while back, I was upstairs with my son and I'm talking to him and I heard my husband downstairs eating soup. Like it was so loud, the sound of the spoon. That's such a good example. And I said, why does he have to eat so loud? And my son said, Mom, he's eating soup. I said, but it's so loud. And then we started laughing because it's one of those things. I'm like, ding, ding, ding. Christy, that's not about him. That's about you.
Yeah.
We laughed. It
Right.
was a funny moment.
At least you laughed.
No, it's so ridiculous, and it's not. I
Well,
mean,
some
it
people might have wanted to do something in particular with the spoon, right?
could be, but it was funny. I'm like, he's eating soup. And just noticing that, though, I think it's so helpful to be aware of your signs
Yeah,
of either bypassing or being busy or overthinking or scrolling. You know, what is it that pushes past that point where you start ignoring and then things like that come in?
yeah,
And just like Linda said, then it's like, what are you doing? And it creates a whole other amount of chaos that has nothing to do with the other person. It was that one's all about me, not paying attention to those signs.
yeah,
Christy, what I love about that example, though, is it really heightens for some people that sound becomes magnified within
Oh,
their nervous system, which is also activated from a much younger state. And it brings me to a memory I had. I was working with some students, and we had a meditation that we were doing, and then all of a sudden, one person is just like goes like, "Oh, that dog," and starts going off about this dog barking, and though I think there were about 10 of us there, 8 people in the group hadn't even heard the dog. So the heightened sense of the nervous system for her and one other person that was in the group shows that that is a theme where for them, the noise, the external noise, becomes magnified in the body. But it was also really helpful to witness that and to actually experience, because we talk about it and we go, some people have a heightened sense of sound as part of their nervous system regulation. But to actually be in a room where people are going like, what dog? And then actually starting to tune in and hearing the dog and having a conversation around how that actually feels within their whole body system, I think created a lot more compassion for people that actually have that heightened nervous system, which we also see with, by the way, a much smaller chin, which heightens the nervous system. And by
Yeah.
actually seeing somebody who has that tiny little chin, notice that that is one of their activation points, sound and how that reverberates through the body.
Yeah. And the history of sound.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
usually there'll be something historically um, that matches
Mhm.
the threat of sound.
yeah.
So it keeps coming back to our innocence. It keeps coming back to our own personal security. It keeps coming back to our sense of comfort or sense of self. And when I say sense of self, it's the existence of the self relative to the environment. And that's incremental. So for some, the depth of security around them as they were growing up may have been superbly embedded that they feel safe inside their form. But for others, that's not necessarily the case. So Leanne was also in the chat there, she's put there psychoneuroimmunology. So it's looking at the how to increase the immunity of the mind and the nervous system, right? When the nervous system is self-regulated, self-relating, rather than relating to the world around it, it then increases our capacity to experience who we are as a person more than what the input is from the world. Two different things. Two different things. So we're really looking at some of the primal needs for ourselves as human beings and the essential of how we protect or create protection around the entity that I am in order to coexist in this world. Because I exist inside my flesh, yet the world exists around me. Even my breath is coming from outside of me to inside of me. We are continuously interacting with what's around us. And how I stabilize within myself also creates an enjoyable exchange with what I'm interacting with. So we're
It
really
makes
looking at, go ahead, Christy.
well, hearing that, it makes me ask the question, like, what's happening in my body when there's that type of activation as I'm relating to the outside world? What are some of the first reactions that happen? Doesn't mean what's happening out here is wrong. What's happening in here? So I can start to create a relationship with my nervous system. It doesn't mean the outside is bad, wrong, or dangerous necessarily. What it means is, okay, how am I relating to that? And can I create some practices and some understanding around the activation and how to settle the nervous system?
Or even take one step back and go, how am I disconnecting
Mm,
from our environment in order to connect with who I am?
mhm,
Yes? How am I, when I say disassociate, what I'm actually asking for is how am I behaving if I choose to detach from global media? How am I experiencing who I am in the existence of where I am when I'm no longer listening to others' inputs or influences? Who am I experiencing when I take a breath in for who I am rather than for all that others are?
Yeah, it's interesting, Sean, that you're saying that as well, because you're saying list watching the behavior, and that's certainly a really great one to notice the behaviors,
Mm,
but even the feelings that go into the thought of watching,
Hmm.
because the
yep,
thought of watching starts to also then give the body sensations.
yep.
And then if that is a familiar pattern, how that relates to past patterns for that person as well.
Is independence something that I appreciate? Is independence something I honor? Is independence something that affirms who I am?
Yeah. And I think it's really important to make just for the awareness of this is not about right or wrong.
Mm-mm.
This is just about actually taking a look at what is. And sometimes even within one's own body system, you can make the feeling wrong. So as you start to learn how to witness your body and experience your body through that loving, kind witness, then you can lean in more to your body sensations. And like the emotions we don't like, the body sensations are sometimes we push away rather than lean into.
Mm,
And it takes practice, but the art of it is in the simplicity of taking the breath and noticing.
mm. And
And I would say naming what you're feeling
Hmm.
in that, and that does sound really simple too. However, and when overwhelm happens, what can often happen is confusion and I don't know, and the spinning so quickly. So the slowing down of what am I feeling and even where am I feeling, either overwhelm or anxiety or sadness. It does slow down that wheel and breathing into that, leaning into that. Your nervous system will, there will be create more of a trust between your brain and your body instead of the brain trying to override everything that's being felt underneath it.
yes, the experience of a physical connection within myself without the monologue of what my brain is interpreting.
Hmm.
Because there were many times in my life where I needed to protect my body from what my brain was doing, just because of that confusion and dysfunction. And that in itself would obliterate the rest of my being, and then there was nowhere safe to be inside of me. So it was learning the reverse. It was learning how to create a secure haven within who I am. So my mind does not have the right to obliterate who I am. Because that in itself is only showing us history of what I experienced by authoritarians. Because that is what our brain does,
Hmm.
becomes the authority. And it's not, I'm the author, not my mind. So I can move into inspiration, so I can do things because it feels right to do that, not because of the mental logistics that go with that.
Yeah.
So what happens next, right? So I called my experience isolation, um, because that word helped my mind recognize the incubation space I needed. So I'm no longer feeling out to how everyone else is doing it or what the world is doing or um, at, at one point in my own journey, I needed to have a guide that helped me with me. And that was about focusing on my breath.
Mm.
Just so I could have a breath without, and I'm going to say without influence. So I could experience a breath without a thought. So I could experience a breath without a reaction. So I could experience a breath that could feed my system without me having to direct it. So it's learning how to isolate myself from the world. And in doing so, isn't about withdrawal. It's actually about increasing my own personal intimacy. The
Internal
more,
connection.
hey,
Internal connection.
yeah, the stronger my internal connection with myself became, then my durability in the world also started to be seen as well.
Yeah. And it's a nice segue to that internal connection is telling you so much more than the emotional bypass.
Mhm.
And sometimes those two may look similar, but just the way that you've described that so beautifully, it's the difference between the bypass and the connection.
Yeah, there's sorry to say this, everybody, there's nowhere to run. Um, there really is nowhere to run.
True.
And if you're inside and you feel like you're running, I suggest you stop. Um, Stop all of it. Stop immediately. The motion to move, so you can find pleasure in being you. And and there are many decompressing processes that are available that we can certainly utilize. And at the same time, closing your eyes and having a breath is yours for you.
There's
Because
a
all of our body reaction from that point on is running all sorts of programs from
Mhm.
history, from time gone by, from lineage, past lives, all are coursing through us.
We have a comment. Would you call that sovereignty, personal intimacy with yourself, what you were just talking about? I would say
Thanks, Anne.
absolutely,
Mm,
because it's choice and you're making the choice instead of the brain, instead of the environment. There's a part of you making a choice to slow down. And Sean, I also loved and I appreciate mentioning a guide because I do think that's very important. Sometimes we get into a space where we need someone to sit with us, to take a breath,
hmm
literally, to notice our breath because sometimes it can be terrifying, or to even close our eyes can be terrifying. And to have someone with you so you're not in isolation, which is what
mm,
you said you were at,
mm,
how important that is. And it sounds so simple. And when there's an activation and you're isolated, it isn't.
yeah.
So please
And
know that as we say this, a guide or someone you feel safe with to be with you
Yes. And
is
if you're
so
having an
important.
aversion to that, then that in itself is also an indicator.
Yeah.
The breath is probably the number one thing. It's the best friend of the nervous system.
Mm.
And just following on from you, Christy, I did an exercise with some students this week, and I showed them a part of the face, which was the eyes, and I had them connect with three different sets of eyes. And one set of eyes, and this is just a drawing of eyes, one set of eyes was more distressed than the other two. And I just
Mhm.
got everyone to just like look into these sets of eyes and to notice what their body was actually signaling. And all of the students kind of went like, "Oh, I'm starting to feel stressed." So that is looking at a picture of an external. And yet we're meeting people every single day. And we may not consciously know that we're reading people, but we're picking up those cues in terms of how people are actually breathing as well. So it's not only our own breath, but it's the breath of others and how
Mhm.
that literally comes into us. And to be able to stop and pause, take that choice and go, this isn't mine. Oh, yes, I'm just having a reaction and I can breathe and I can recenter and I can calm my nervous system in a very short space. Is really an add-on to what you were saying, Christy, but aligned.
Yeah, it matters that
Totally.
and you're creating a relationship with your nervous system. You're creating a relationship with self. So when we have relating with the outside world, it doesn't blow us over so quickly. We notice it, and we might notice it by whatever activation that is in us, and we can also notice it and move it away from us by the breath.
Yes, it doesn't belong necessarily inside of us, even though it's
Exactly.
around us. I
Yeah.
belong inside of me. This is my temple. I belong inside of me. Nobody else belongs in here but
Mhm.
me. But if I have empty space and I'm not filling that space, something will, because that's the way space works.
Very good point.
I'm just going to mention something random here because it's come into my field recently, but it's a little bit left field. You might notice that a person or people or situation or event comes into your awareness and you're trying to actually be in the presence of yourself doing your own breath work. And then all of a sudden, this person might keep showing up, or people or situation. Um, you're able to actually take that and recognize that maybe that's an external influence also wanting some assistance from you. But you can also put it aside and put it into like before you go to bed, put it into like a think of it as like a healing box
Mhm.
and put some positive energy into that situation that takes it out of your body system and energetic field to actually receiving some, let's just refer to it as breath, um, from the external so that that situation can start to actually resolve and you can be with you.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely true. Um, and the more undiluted I am, the more durable I will be. Make sense?
Absolutely.
Great. So the part of the reason that we needed to go into the basics of this topic um, was because Cynthia brought up a question last month. And um, can I ask you, Linda, to read out her question?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I recognize that cortisol floods into my body and can be seen in the shape of my thighs. Even though I understand the story of the past isn't happening now, the tissue is changing and I have heightened awareness. I would like to know about why this is happening. I'd like to know more
Okay.
about why this is happening.
So there's various approaches to this. Well, let's start really simple first, because she mentions cortisol. And people may or may not know what that is, that it's a hormone that becomes activated in our system when we are under threat.
Mhm.
Right. So, um, flight, fight, fawn, and freeze. All of those are responses, but all of those are also cortisol experiences.
Yeah. And release from the adrenals.
And the adrenals, of course, are like a battery pack for us. So if you have mid-back issues, it means your adrenals are also overwrought, overactivated. So we need to be able to interact and also decompress. So we need to activate in order to come back to a point of sovereignty. So if cortisol has created an overactivated system in our body that keeps repeating itself, then we also find that our body becomes inflamed. There's inflexibility that happens that aligns itself with that. You can also find that the body itself becomes enlarged in a way. Yeah, because everything's pumping in a hyperactivity mode. Christy.
In that pumping of the hyperactivity,
Mm,
understand that we have our body doesn't understand time, first and foremost.
mm,
So, if you have a memory of something that happened, the soft tissue in the body is our emotional response. So, with the legs and the change in the shape of the legs and the tissue, we're looking at if you get activated or you think about a story again and again and again, perhaps that happened when you were a child. What happens in the body is the cortisol comes in, the kidneys get affected every single time, even though it happened a while back. And the importance of learning about, I believe, learning about somatics and the nervous system is, oh, there's that feeling. Sometimes it's a numbness in the legs. Sometimes it's restless legs. Sometimes it's like tree trunk. I had a client last week, they feel like tree trunks, I can't move them. Something is being activated to get your attention, to pay attention. What's going on in my system that's creating more heaviness or disconnection or the feeling of running and I can't leave? There's a part that's asking to be I use the word witnessed, what is coming up that's being asked to be seen and acknowledged so that that pattern doesn't continue to loop. Because what happens is it happens in the brain and then the body goes, oh yeah, we're in danger again. Oh yeah, this is happening again, even though it isn't. And as we as we understand how that system works, we can, like the question about being sovereign and choice, we can choose something else by slowing down in it, being curious, and probably either journaling or asking for some guidance in that,
all
because
relative,
otherwise it continues to loop again.
yeah, all relative to um, when and how. Because sometimes we may have a symptom in our body that we feel like has always been there. So it's been there a very long time. So to that extent, we don't necessarily have the mental logic to be able to deactivate that because it's going to reside in a deeper emotional space. So therefore, the emotional decompression of that space is what we're looking for. And it's not necessarily, yes, it's about the feelings or the emotion that's there, but it's actually taking yourself to a deeper, more vulnerable space. So you can honor yourself from that deeper, vulnerable space rather than the layer that sits around it that feels under threat. Our vulnerability is our access and gateway to our sovereignty. We so often um, avoid or have an aversion to being excessively vulnerable because of history, because we think something might happen when we get there, when actually it's about retrieving that place because that deeper, innocent, precious space is currently locked inside of that overactivated space. So we need to go into that deeper vulnerable space in order to release that behavior, in order to restore our connection with that deeper vulnerable nature of who we are, our innocence, the purity of who we are.
Yeah. And this is where, at some level, particularly if there has been some unresolved issues from the past that are still activated, but you've developed coping mechanisms to cope with them quite well, and you're noticing that activation that could link into some areas in childhood or growing up at any point in time.
Mm,
Finding somebody to work with is really important to hold that space and to be able to show you um, patterns that may be in the unconscious space.
mm.
We have these adaptive patterns for a reason, and we need to make sure that they're safely released. So some of the areas that even we're suggesting, if you feel like what we're saying is too much for you to be able to do by yourself, please reach out to your support system. Obviously, we're here to support you as well. Um, but it's really important to be held in that space and not just to do it alone, because often that do it alone pattern is part of the theme that kind of keeps that nervous system in a state where it's not going to happily change because
Or
it is trying to
unwitnessed. Yeah.
protect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and the moment that somebody sees my innocence in its purity beyond how I currently perceive it, is the moment that I'm given permission to be more self-loving. And that's the most profound thing that I've had when I walked through life is when I meet people that have access to their purity in such a way that it reminds me how I can access mine.
Mm.
And that's
And
the
it's one of
most,
the most beautiful things to
oh,
sit with
it's so
and to be in this
divine.
space with.
So divine.
It is because it's not even
It's
the
not an
word.
education. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
it's the
relief.
presence. Yeah. And we're always relating with our nervous system with other people and sitting with someone who is maybe further along the path, regulated, centered, has greater capacity. That ability within the nervous system is like, and it's not
Because we
even
know it's possible,
spoken.
right?
Yes. And it's a beautiful, beautiful gift.
And we know that it can be unraveled,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And I'm no longer struggling with what it is because my focus is actually accessing my greater innocence.
Mm-hmm.
That's my divine right. That's my divine gift. That is my uh, humanness of who I am.
Mm.
So the body is is profound in its offerings of what it wants us to comprehend around how are we accessing that for ourselves. Yeah, it's the perfect symptomatic gateway. It'll tell me at any given point what my needs are. am I willing to be that need? Um, that's only for us as an individual to answer.
And it can become a lot more interesting, a lot more curious, a lot more fun when you listen to the smaller nuances rather than trying to react to the really large ones that come through. But either way,
Yeah.
either way, they both give profound insights. And sometimes it's those,
I call them emotional workshops.
yeah, sometimes those huge events are an invitation to just, sit back, breathe, come back to basics.
Mm, yeah. And it really is about the basics. And you're very welcome, Leanne. Leanne's just saying she's loving the session. Um, how playful am I with myself?
Or not.
Or not. Good point, Linda.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
for me, being playful is an essential invitation for my innocence to rise.
Mm.
My innocence can't or won't rise if playful is off the list. If things get too serious, my innocence hides.
And the flip to that, playfulness can also be a distraction as well. So it's got the place at both ends of
Or
the
if you go
scale.
too far.
Yes.
You go too
That's called an addiction.
because often that's a,
Oh,
that's a deflection as well, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it can
Yeah,
be.
yeah. Go out, play hard. Yes, been there, done that. Moderation, moderation. I never knew it was a thing, but apparently it's a thing. Um, it's a
Oh,
scale, yes, and a balanced one at that, right?
always, yes. And to invite some more play in for many.
And and on that note, this kind of pushes us into our next part of our series, right? The next part of our series is the wisdom of the body. So looking at it as a guide rather than something that's a disruption or a disturbance in our life. You know, our bodies are our dedicated calling, and you can think of them as multiple phone calls happening all at once that you're asked to talk to, which is possible. And also, what is the tone of voice that you're using on that phone call?
Mm.
Yeah. Are you deactivating something or reactivating something? Um, Thank you, Kyle. I am such an observer, and I wonder how much just walking around seeing people like in the mall may be influencing me, probably on a
Mm.
subtle level. Yeah, and feel free to also breathe out into the space. Feel free to bring a signature to the space. Feel free to add something to that environment. It's called you.
Mm.
and maybe we can look at that also next week, Gail, if you did, or next month, take
Yeah.
that opportunity and for anyone who's listening here to actually, as you're going into an environment that would normally create a lot of internal stress or feeling that you are overly sensitive to the people around, to take a breath in, feel that love on the inside. And as Sean said, just imagining that you're just breathing out positive vibes and wishes for everyone that happens to be walking.
It's an offering, it's a remembrance, it's a
Mhm.
um yeah, it's a divine email. Yeah, sharing your divinity reminds me of mine. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
thank
Okay.
you everybody for coming along this month.
Thank you, everyone.
Um, may you enjoy um, deactivating a lot of those influences, um, time and space, in order to reunite with your divine presence. And we look forward to playing again real soon. Thank you for your
Thank
messages
you.
today. Lou has popped in there. Remember, with others, they are not responding to me. Sorry about my unstable internet connection. Okay, they're all good, Lulu. Um, take care, everyone. Look after yourselves, and most certainly everybody else.